When infighting between the Duvas and Don King kept a Holyfield-Tyson bout on the back burner, good things may come to those who wait, he says, but only if you take care of business while you're waiting.
It looks like Dokes with that punch. There, he's hurt badly by a body shot. Sinks to the ropes, and that's it.
The common narrative suggests Evander Holyfield was merely a cruiserweight beneficiary of Mike Tyson's collapse in Tokyo. But the reality of October 25th, 1990, tells a different story. Holyfield wasn't a placeholder. He was the undisputed cruiserweight king who had spent 2 years methodically dismantling heavyweights like Pinklon Thomas and Alex Stewart to earn his mandatory slot. When he stepped into the ring at the Mirage in Las Vegas, he wasn't looking for a fluke. He weighed in at a lean 208 pounds, facing a man who had shocked the world but neglected the gym. While the public focused on the absence of Tyson, Holyfield focused on the 246-pound frame of James "Buster" Douglas, aiming to prove that discipline scales across weight classes better than raw size ever could. Buster Douglas entered the ring that Thursday night, carrying the weight of a $24 million purse and a noticeable lack of the fire that fueled his victory in Japan 8 months prior.
Stunned was against White Kawi in the first meeting and against Carlos De Leon. By Douglas, a key weapon for him. He's trying to find the range. Buster is looking to find the range with the right hand. That's why whereas Holyfield's trying to find the range for the...
At 246 pounds, he was 15 pounds heavier than the night he knocked out Tyson, appearing soft around the middle and slow in his lateral movement. His trainer, John Russell, could only watch as the champion flicked out lazy, non-committal jabs that Holyfield easily slipped. The tactical disparity was immediate. Holyfield, guided by the legendary duo of Lou Duva and George Benton, utilized a high guard defense and rapid-fire combinations, staying perpetually in the pocket without absorbing the heavy shots that had bothered Tyson earlier that year. By the second round, the physical conditioning of the two men created a stark visual contrast under the desert heat. Holyfield's work rate was relentless, landing significantly more punches than the champion in the opening 6 minutes. He focused on the body, using a digging left hook to further sap the stamina of the champion.
Thus, the only time he was hurt or stunned was against White Kawi in the first meeting and against Carlos.
The counter right hand by Douglas, a key weapon for him. He's trying to find the range. Buster is looking to find the range with the jab, whereas Holyfield's trying to find the range for that left hook.
Douglas tried to lean on Holyfield to use his 38-pound weight advantage. But Evander's lower body strength, honed through intensive plyometric training with Tim Hallmark, allowed him to pivot and reset instantly. The Mirage crowd began to realize they weren't witnessing a competitive title defense, but a surgical dismantling of a man who had already reached his mountaintop and had nowhere left to climb.
Narrow path running parallel to the stadium. We noticed the stark white barricades. The TV cables, they no doubt, will be oblivious to all of that. Then, with hearts pounding and minds racing.
The end arrived at 1 minute and 10 seconds into the third round, triggered by a massive tactical error from the champion. Douglas attempted a wide, telegraphic right uppercut from too far out, leaving his chin completely exposed to a counterstrike. Holyfield didn't hesitate, planting his feet and firing a short, devastating straight right hand that caught Douglas flush on the jaw. The champion collapsed onto his back, famously wiping his face as the referee, Mills Lane, reached the count of 10.
Stunned was against White Kawi in the first meeting and against Carlos De Leon.
There's a counter right hand by weapon for him. He's trying to find the range. Buster is looking to find the range with the right hand. That's why he's pawing with the jab. Find the range for that left hook.
It was a clinical finish that saw Holyfield capture the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles in his very first heavyweight championship attempt. With that single blow, the real deal erased any doubt about his legitimacy, beginning a new era in the heavyweight division. As Mills Lane completed the 10 count, the visual inside the Mirage's outdoor arena was one of controlled jubilation rather than shock. While Buster Douglas lay flat, a portrait of a man whose conditioning had failed his ambition, Evander Holyfield simply walked to his corner with the same rhythmic bounce he'd maintained since the opening bell. There was no wild celebration, only the quiet validation of a 4-year plan meticulously executed by the holy quadrant of his training staff. While Douglas had ballooned to a soft 246 pounds, 15 pounds heavier than the night he shocked the world in Tokyo, Holyfield weighed in at a shredded 208 pounds. This wasn't a heavyweight by traditional 1990 standards. It was a cruiserweight chassis reinforced with high-density functional muscle, a product of Tim Hallmark's experimental conditioning program that focused on explosive anaerobic bursts rather than the static strength of old-school heavyweights. The secret to Holyfield's durability that night lay in the basement of a Houston training facility, where Tim Hallmark had reimagined the boxer's diet and movement. Every morning at 5 a.m., Holyfield wasn't just running miles. He was performing plyometric drills designed to increase his foot speed and lateral reactivity. His diet was a rigid 11,000 calorie a day regimen consisting of complex carbohydrates and lean proteins, partitioned across 6 meals to fuel his metabolic rate. Critics like Larry Merchant had openly questioned if a blown-up cruiserweight could take a flush shot from a legitimate heavyweight. However, by the end of the second round, the question had flipped. It wasn't about Holyfield's chin, it was about whether Douglas could even find it. Evander's head movement was constant, slipping Douglas's predictable double jab and countering with a digging left hook to the liver that audibly echoed through the first 10 rows of the ringside seats. Behind the scenes, the tactical mastermind was George Benton, the defensive wizard who had been drilling one specific sequence into Holyfield for 12 weeks. The step-over right hand
was also suited for fighting on the inside, always looking to keep his head on the left shoulder, looking to land body shots with hooks and set up the right uppercut, while he would also look to frame off the shoulder a gap so he could get off a sharp left hook to the body or head.
Benton noticed that when Douglas threw his uppercut, he had a tendency to drop his left shoulder and lean forward, a flaw that left a direct line to his jaw. If you're the type of enthusiast who values the microscopic details of a training camp over mainstream hype, subscribe to this channel right now and join a community dedicated to dissecting the technical history of the sweet science.
Analysing George Benton's fighting days, it's no surprise he was later called the Professor, and apparently was quoted saying 48 ways to counter the jab. And from watching him, I believe him.
In the third round, Benton's observation became reality. When Douglas launched that fateful, lazy uppercut, Holyfield didn't retreat. He took a subtle half step to his left, creating the perfect angle for a short arc straight right. The punch traveled less than 12 inches, but the torque generated from Holyfield's hips made it the most significant strike of his career to date.
Holyfield, a counter right hand, no less. Not the kind of a punch that we would expect him to knock Buster Douglas. But remember, in that first and second round, he was finding the range for this right. You'll see a lazy left jab. Then we'll see another. Oh, the uppercut from way back. Well, the primary rule, you never throw an uppercut from far back. We've seen so many boxers.
The CompuBox statistics from the brief 9-minute encounter tell a story of total statistical dominance that the live crowd only partially grasped. Holyfield threw 145 punches, landing 66 of them for a staggering 46% accuracy rate. In contrast, the champion managed to land only 20 of his 69 attempts, a dismal 29% clip. Douglas's legendary jab, the weapon that had dismantled Mike Tyson's aura of invincibility just 8 months prior, was non-existent. Every time Buster tried to establish the range, Holyfield would explode with a 3-punch combination. Hook, cross, hook, before Douglas could reset his feet. Lou Duva, screaming from the corner, kept imploring Evander to keep the pressure on the chest. By staying inside Douglas's reach, Holyfield negated the champion's 83-inch wingspan, forcing a long-range fighter into a phone booth war he was physically unprepared to win.
So he can work his jab, left hook, and right uppercut, which was so useful in Tyson. They'll try to keep Holyfield from getting inside where he is so effective with those short punches. And Holyfield has great hand speed.
The financial stakes at the Mirage were as heavy as the punches being thrown. Steve Wynn had paid a then-record $32.1 million to host the fight, constructing a temporary 16,000-seat stadium in the parking lot of his new resort. For Douglas, the night was a $24 million payday that felt more like a retirement settlement. For Holyfield, his $8 million purse was the entry fee into the elite tier of sports marketing. As Jim Lampley climbed into the ring to interview the new champion, the contrast in the two men's conditions was staggering. Holyfield wasn't even breathing hard. His heart rate, which Hallmark monitored religiously, had barely spiked above 140 beats per minute during the entire fight. He stood under the Desert Stars with the WBC, WBA, and IBF belts draped over his shoulders, finally shedding the Olympic bronze medalist label for a new permanent title, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. While the media focused on Douglas's lack of desire, the boxing insiders were mesmerized by Holyfield's short-arm punching technique. Most heavyweights of the era, influenced by the slugging style of the mid-80s, threw wide, looping shots that were easy to telegraph. Holyfield, under the tutelage of Lou Duva, kept his elbows tucked tight to his ribs.
That's a key in this first round.
Douglas, much bigger, 38 pounds heavier, 5.5-inch reach advantage field on the outside, so he can work his jab, left hook, and right uppercut, which was so Mike Tyson. They'll try to keep Holyfield from getting inside where he is so effective with those punches. And Holyfield has...
This allowed him to fire punches from a neutral defensive position, making his offensive bursts almost impossible to anticipate. In the locker room after the fight, Duva was heard telling reporters that they had beaten the man who beat the man, effectively ending the Tyson-Douglas era. The transition was complete. The heavyweight division was no longer about raw, chaotic power. It had become a game of high-speed chess, and Evander Holyfield was the only one playing with a grandmaster's clock. The aftermath at the press table saw a somber Buster Douglas admitting that he just didn't have it. But the reality was more technical than psychological. Holyfield had utilized a constant contact clinch strategy.
Left hook and right uppercut, which was so useful and effective against Mike Tyson. They'll try to keep Holyfield. He is so effective with those short, crisp, hard punches. And Holyfield has great hand speed, tries to wear down his opponents with accumulation.
Every time Douglas tried to catch his breath, Holyfield would lean his forehead into Douglas's chest and work the ribs with short uppercuts. This neutralized Douglas's height advantage and prevented him from using his weight to lean on the smaller man. By the time the third round began, Douglas's legs were heavy from the constant wrestling and bodywork.
Against White Kawi in the first meeting and against Carlos de Leon.
There's a counter right hand by Doug. Weapon for him. He's trying to find the range. Buster is looking to find the range with the right hand. That's why he's pawing with the jab. Whereas Holyfield's trying to find the range for that left hook.
This set the stage for the technical era, the wide uppercut, that would end his reign. Holyfield had effectively dismantled a 246-pound giant by outworking him in the clinch, a tactic he would refine into a hallmark of his legendary heavyweight run. As the lights dimmed at the Mirage, the boxing world had to reconcile with a new reality.
But he does question Douglas's intestinal fortitude, which was really illustrated against Tucker in '87.
One of the important things for Holyfield here is he's using the jab a lot, Steve. Can't let it languish out there for hand.
So a feeling out process here.
The era of the unbeatable Mike Tyson was gone, and the man who replaced his conqueror was a disciplined, tactically superior athlete who treated boxing like a science project. Holyfield's victory over Douglas wasn't just a win, it was a proof of concept. It proved that a cruiserweight's speed combined with a heavyweight's specialized strength could dominate the biggest men in the world. With his first world title secured in devastating fashion, the real deal had silenced every critic who said he was too small. He had navigated the 1990 landscape with surgical precision, leaving Las Vegas not just as a champion, but as the new standard for what a modern heavyweight athlete was supposed to be. The official scorecards at the time of the stoppage at the Mirage told a story of total technical dominance. Judges Jerry Roth, Dalby Shirley, and Bill Graham all had Holyfield winning every second of the two completed rounds, scoring at 2018 across the board. While Buster Douglas walked away with a career-high $24 million purse, his reputation as a one-hit wonder was cemented by his inability to land a single significant power shot. Conversely, Holyfield's $8 million payout was the down payment on a new kingdom.
Weight problems, but he does question Douglas's intestinal fortitude, which was Rucker in '87.
One of the important things for Holyfield here is can't let it languish out there because Douglas has such a quick right hand.
He didn't celebrate with the usual Las Vegas excess. Instead, he was back in the gym within weeks. The skeptics still pointed to the upcoming 1991 schedule, questioning if this blown-up cruiserweight could withstand the pure, heavy-handed power of the division's past legends. They wouldn't have to wait long for the definitive answer. On April 19, 1991, at the Atlantic City Convention Center, Holyfield faced his first true litmus test against George Foreman. Dubbed the Battle of the Ages, it was a stark contrast in physical profiles. Foreman weighed in at 257 pounds, a massive 49-pound advantage over the 208-pound champion. In the 7th round, Holyfield landed a staggering 15-punch combination that tested the chin of the most durable man in boxing history. He wasn't just throwing for knockout power, he was using short, crisp hooks and cross counters to exploit Foreman's slow recovery time between swings.
Anytime that I would lose a fight, it set me back a year or two. So I had to look at each and every fight as a champ. All of them fights is pretty much chapter that leads to the final chapter.
Most expected the final chapter would pit Holyfield against Iron Mike Tyson.
Holyfield proved he could absorb a legendary haymaker in the 3rd round and return fire with 3-1 volume. This 12-round unanimous decision victory wasn't just a successful title defense, it was the final proof that the heavyweight division had evolved into an endurance-based sport. The statistical output from the Foreman bout underscored Holyfield's revolutionary approach to the weight class. He threw 755 punches over 12 rounds, an output nearly double the heavyweight average of the era, while Foreman landed a massive right hand in the 3rd that momentarily buckled Holyfield's knees. The champion's recovery time was nearly instantaneous. This was the direct result of the conditioning over mass philosophy pioneered by his trainer Lou Duva and 8-time Mr. Olympia Lee Haney.
And that's to win the heavyweight championship of the world. And I think that's who he's fighting. He's not fighting Douglas. He's not fighting Tyson. He's fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world. And I think that's the thing that he's zeroing in on. Nothing else. And to me, that's good.
I have won the heavyweight championship of the world.
By outpointing a powerhouse like Foreman, Holyfield didn't just keep his belts. He officially closed the door on the 1980s style of one-punch reliance. To see more deep dives into the tactical shifts that defined the 90s, consider joining our community by hitting the join button below. By the end of 1991, the undisputed heavyweight championship was no longer a chaotic lottery of upsets. Evander Holyfield had stabilized the throne through technical proficiency and a refusal to be intimidated by the size of the true heavyweights. He had taken the belts from the man who beat Mike Tyson and defended them against the most dangerous veteran in the sport's history. The real deal era was characterized by a specific type of grit, one measured in heart rate, metabolic conditioning, and punching angles rather than just raw intimidation. The night at the Mirage was the starting point, but the grit shown in Atlantic City proved that Holyfield was the most complete fighter of his generation. The debate about his natural weight was over. The era of the scientific heavyweight had arrived.